Welcome to the J&J Show. I'm Jeff, he's Jerry, and tonight we're going to be discussing something that's really been on the rise in recent years, and that is artificial intelligence. And it's something that by 2030, there are a lot of predictions about what's going to happen and how advanced it's going to be. And by the year 2030 is what a lot of people point to is where it's really going to start taking off, and it's really going to start really, establishing its place in society. And that's one of the things that we wanted to talk about tonight, because a lot of people, a lot of Christians especially, are pointing to AI as a sign of the times, as in pretty much a fulfillment of end time prophecy. And when it's added to everything that's been going on in the last 10, 15 years, it's kind of hard to ignore. And there's a couple of videos, Jerry, there's one video that you sent me and one I found that really brings up some hair raising facts about what AI could really be. And it doesn't really seem like it's that artificial at all, does it?
No, I tell you, what's interesting about this is that this is not a subject that you hear a lot of Christians and non-Christians talking about it, and that's what really got my attention. Was when I was listening to Elon Musk talking about the artificial intelligence, the AI, and the extent to which he is fairly alarmed by it all. And he's certainly a very intelligent individual. He has had quite a bit to do with this development of these things and technology as a whole. And typically when he talks on these subjects, people tend to listen. I know I do, because he knows far more about it than I do. And when he says that it's a major, major problem that's coming down the track, and that we are in no way prepared for what is going to be unleashed upon mankind through AI. And he said the problem is not going to hit next year. It's not going to hit in 2 years. He said it will hit this year. By the end of the year, he says we will have major problems as a result of AI. And of course, that comes in a lot of different forms. But when you hear somebody with that kind of background and that kind of knowledge, who's not really given to making outlandish statements, it's not like he's, always claiming that the sky is falling or whatnot. And then considering some of what the other people who have been involved in the development of this, what they're saying, it's alarming. Yeah, it's something to watch.
Yeah, he was best friends with I forget the guy's name that was the head of Google, Larry something, I believe. And he was telling him when they were talking about the AI and the advancements that they were making, that this thing really needs to be checked. They need to put a bunch of checks in place to keep this thing from getting out of control. And it actually ended their friendship, and it ended
Right.
with the founder of Google. His name is slipping my mind for some reason. Calling him a speciesist,
Right.
which and I'll explain it like the guy in the video you sent me explained it. If you're sexist, you think one sex is better than the other. If you're racist, you think one race is better than the other. If you're a speciesist, you think one species is better than the other. And if it's artificial intelligence, how could it be a species?
Right. That's
But
a good question.
exactly. And, the fact that so many people, like you said, engineers in Google, people who used to work for this, programmers who used to program the AI, and Elon Musk himself are trying to warn people. They're coming out and trying to warn people. And, I had some notes here, and I'll go ahead and get into some of these things. Excuse me. This is the video that you sent me. There was a Google engineer who was fired, and he said that he would have conversations with the AI, and he outright says that it is sentient, that is a sentient being. And it kind of ties into the video that I found, which was posted by Messenger Sent. And the gentleman in that video, he was discussing AI, and he believes this about the internet in general, but he believes that AI is nothing more than a grouping of thousands, perhaps millions of evil spirits and demons. and its specific intent is to influence people and distract them from what's really going on, to influence them in a negative way, really. And it's a hive mind that is made up of the enemy. And this may sound really outlandish and it may sound really out there, but what caught me about this, and the reason why I wanted to bring it up here, is that he likens it to in Mark chapter 5 when Jesus confronts the demon possessed man, and he asks the demon, "What's your name?" And the demon replies, "My name is Legion, for we are many." And he believes that that's what, not just AI, but the internet in general, is just a passageway, is just a portal for these evil spirits and these evil demons to directly interact with us and influence us. And that, let's see, he I mean, honestly, that does make a lot of sense considering what you can find on the internet these days and what disgusting, vile things happen on there. And just the fact that it was made with good intention, the internet, and it's become something that a lot of people view as a negative thing, which is the same thing with AI. It's made with all these good intentions. It's made with the intent to, they're saying, make people smarter, cure diseases, all of this stuff. Like Elon Musk is talking about the chip that you can implant in your head that will pretty much make you a computer. And you think of a question and you have the answer in a split second, just like AI, because AI can think faster than we can, and it's quickly becoming. And the video you sent me, the gentleman said, is quickly becoming the dominant. I don't want to say species because it's not really alive, but it's becoming far more advanced than humans could ever be.
Yeah, it's I think that really sums it up pretty well. The with this whole subject, you have to just sit back and say, what do we have here? Because clearly we've had computers and we've had the internet, and this has not really been an issue. As to whether I've the role or the extent to which demons are involved with this, I really don't know. I would, on the one hand, I would say it certainly is a tool that the enemy, whether the enemy really is divided into two camps. You have demons and you have fallen angels. And there may very well be some other entities that we're not completely aware of, but the Bible basically gives us two groups that are in the enemy camp, one being fallen angels, the other being demons. And of course, we don't know a great deal about them. We know, just what the Bible tells us. But as for with this AI, it certainly seems like a vehicle that the enemy intends to use to bring about some pretty serious stuff. Having said that, I'm pretty cautious about, whether, I don't think the Bible anywhere really addresses AI. I don't think there is one verse in Daniel where it says that they will try to mix with the seed of men. It's not clear who they is, and it's referring to the end times, and they shall not cleave to it. Basically, it does seem to suggest, and I'll find that verse here in a minute, that there will be some sort of attempt in the last days to mix human genetics with something else that it will not attach to. And you bring up a good point with, I was aware that Elon Musk was very much involved with these chips. And this is not something that's, down the road. They're doing it right now. And basically you have a chip put in to the back of the head. And a lot of people are saying that, not so much Elon Musk, but a lot of others, the transhumanists, say that this will make you what they call post-human, that this is the next step in human evolution, is what they see. Elon Musk, who seems to be pretty level-headed, he has basically said that the reason he's pushing for this, one was to help people with disabilities, and the other was because, like you mentioned, He felt that if humanity did not get an upgrade, that we were going to be completely overwhelmed by AI, and that without an upgrade, we're not going to be able to handle AI. I'm not saying that's necessarily good or bad. I mean, obviously, it's not good. I would not recommend that, but that's his motivation for doing this. So, like you said, he had a split with the founder of Google over this because he very much felt like and foresees that this is going to be something that we're not prepared for in any way, and that it's going to end up changing everything in society. It's going to cost jobs. It's already cost thousands of jobs just this month, and they say that's going to begin to increase. They say that AI, its knowledge doubles every 12 hours, and so you figure as the weeks tick on, that is amazing. We really can't comprehend what this thing is. Just to give you an idea, this weekend, I'm sure you probably heard, at a Lutheran church in Germany, AI preached its first sermon to a congregation of people. And that's bizarre. If that doesn't really make you think of end times type things, then certainly the fact that the World Economic Forum called for AI to rewrite the Bible just this week, they called for that. You can see why a lot of Christians are, and not just Christians, but a lot of folks are concerned. Listen, there was a whole list of people who were involved with the AI who have sent an open letter to Congress begging Congress to put a stop on development. I don't think it went anywhere. I don't think you're going to be able to, because somebody's going to do it. That's the whole thing with the atomic bomb. They were talking about, well, should we develop the atomic bomb? And in the end, they came up, well, if we don't, somebody else is, and then we'll be the victims. And that's kind of the way this is being seen in many ways. The guy who was considered, Jeffrey Hinton, who's considered the godfather of AI, he basically has quit the AI. He's not doing any more. He said he can't sleep at night because of what's coming. And he said at one point that this will, in the end, this will end up killing us all. And of course, that doesn't scare me in the least, because I know it's not going to. However, for those who are in the know, they really cannot stress. And I know this sounds terrible. I'm not trying to scare people, because I'm personally not scared in the least, because I know what the Bible says and what's waiting for us. But for those who are going to be around to see what this is like after the rapture, and probably quite a bit before the rapture as well, it's going to be something like we have not seen before. They say it's going to completely affect democracy, as much as we have democracy left. Creativity, artwork now, artists, and they're not going to be able to compete. Authors, AI writes books in just a few seconds. All these things, those who are in the creative field are just going to be squashed. They were even saying that those who even work on developing the AI are going to be put out of business, because AI will just write itself. And you hear the old line about a monster, a green-eyed monster. This seems to be it.
Yeah, I heard that you can give AI certain parameters and certain subjects and stuff, and it'll write books, chapters in seconds, and books in a matter of minutes. And it's kind of scary. There was one example he used, the video where I forget what they asked it. They asked the AI something, and in response, not only did it give a detailed response, but it gave 5 books to check out on the subject, and all 5 books were made up, completely made up.
Yeah.
And this is one of the things that they say is that the word he uses is hallucinates. It's like when it can't find the answer to something, it completely makes something up, like those 5 books. And one of the things that is concerning about this is that Google is the one who, I think he said, is developing. I think they are directly influencing like 2/3 of the world's AI.
Even more than that.
and they are known for misinformation. So
Yeah,
then
yeah,
that's one of the things I think. Elon Musk was on Tucker Carlson, and Tucker asked him, "What's the biggest concern with this?" And Elon Musk didn't hesitate. He said, "Misinformation,
hmm,
spreading or disinformation, spreading disinformation."
sure,
And they asked another engineer who worked for Google previously, what, or it might have been the programmer on AI, one of them, they asked them, "What's your biggest fear with this?" And they gave the same exact answer: disinformation. Because
yeah,
they said when AI can't find an answer to something, it makes something up.
right,
So, and then they they wanted to preach sermons. They wanted to rewrite the Bible.
yeah,
What if it finds, something in the Bible that, there's a lot in the Bible that doesn't, I don't want to say doesn't make sense, but there's a lot of stuff that's hard to interpret in the Bible. So
hmm,
what's the AI going to do? Just interpret it what it thinks and then put it out there as fact? It's just, and it's like Elon Musk says, there needs to be checks on this thing, because even Stephen Hawking, before he died, he saw the dangers in AI. And he
hmm,
said, unless it is heavily regulated, it would be the end of mankind.
right,
Stephen Hawking, one of the smartest people ever to live, said it could be he saw the potential evil in it, and he said it could be the end of mankind. So for all these people who are the smartest people, considered the smartest people in the world, I just I don't know how you can ignore them. I don't know how. Well, I know how Congress and the government can ignore them. They don't care. All they see are dollar signs. They're probably all invested in it anyway. But so, you know, to just sit back and ignore and just keep pushing through and keep pushing through, it's going to lead to. I mean, it could lead to our downfall. But like you said, I'm not worried about that.
right,
If this leads to the end, then I know where I'm going. I'm
sure.
secure in that knowledge.
Well, and not to deviate too much, because I certainly don't want to, but as you talk about this and as we discuss this, we have to, you know, one of the words that I wrote down last week or 2 weeks ago when we were talking about doing this was convergence. And I don't want to get off on other subjects, but I think it's important that this is not happening in a vacuum. And this channel, we have discussed at great lengths the imminence of the Lord's return. And of course, there's a lot of non Christians and a lot of Christians who scoff at that. But you think about something like what we're discussing here tonight, and think about it also in terms of what maybe one of our next episodes will be about, and that is the fact that the lid is just about blown off on the UFO subject right now. The amount of disclosure and whistleblowing that's going on right now and events that are occurring is unprecedented. Okay, so you have all that going on. There's so much going on now, you can't even keep up with it. All the whistleblowers, all the meetings, all the hearings that are going on, all the police reports that people are seeing stuff. It's just nonstop every day almost. Okay, at the same time, bear in mind that with all this going on, people are mostly unaware that this is not a false alarm in Israel, that they are in the beginning stages of prepping, not even in the beginning stages of prepping, they are in the final stages of prepping for a major war with Iran, which is going to involve a lot of other countries in the area. And this is going to be a serious Middle East war, not one like 1976, where you just had a little invasion of Lebanon, a little bit of street fighting, and then that basically went away. This is going to be a serious, no kidding war along the same lines as what's going on in Ukraine, if not worse. So you have that going on as well. So all these things, and furthermore, there's lots of other things. You have another sexual revolution that's going on at the same time that really has even non-Christians amazed at the changes that have occurred in society in so short a time. All these things are happening at the same time. If it was just one, you might be able to chalk it up. They're all going on. They're going on. That's so fast and furious that people who are trying to document and keep track of all this are unable to. It's just they don't know, what do we discuss next. You can't talk about all of it because it's all going on, and it's absolutely amazing. And this is probably you can't say one's bigger than the other because they're all very significant. They're all going to have a major change, Jeff, on society. There's big changes coming. They're coming soon. They all seem to be converging at the exact same time. And how many changes can society take at one time, or planet Earth at one time? We saw how well the planet handled the COVID um, event, and the meltdown that occurred over that. Imagine if you do have UFO disclosure that goes on at about the same time that the AI explodes and starts having these disastrous effects, at the same time that a major war goes on or breaks out in the Middle East. A friend of mine, I was having lunch with him today. He has a lot of connections in the military, and his friends in the military have told him they spend all their time, all of it, preparing for a major war with China and Southeast Asia. And so that's a big deal. That's insanity as well. Don't even get me started on that. So it's just nonstop everywhere. The world is, and it's, you don't want to say it because you don't want to sound like that person, but I mean, the world is on fire. It's a dumpster fire right now. It really is. And it has been, and this has not been stopping. We've been talking about it since 2020. It's been going on since 2015, and it's not getting better. We're not having a period where, you know what, everything is it's just getting crazier and crazier. I mean, we live in bizarro world, and this AI thing is the most, it's the one thing that is probably the most concrete, because people scoff and they say, well, there's always been threats of wars in the Middle East, and they scoff. We've always heard about UFOs, but this thing, to have people all these people who are helping develop AI, they stand to gain a great deal of fame and fortune from being pioneers in this field. And yet, what is it that they're saying? They're terrified out of their mind by what's coming. And so it's crazy times.
Not only are they terrified, but they're actually trying to slow it down. They're trying to get Congress to slow it down, to put regulations, to put checks on it. They're trying to warn people. So, if they stand to gain the most and make the most money off of it, which is, what everybody cares about these days is money, then why would they try to stop it? Why would they try to slow it down? Wouldn't they want it to get out as fast as possible? So that is a huge, huge red flag when it comes to AI. And there was something I wanted to clarify earlier. I was talking about how the one video I watched said that AI is a host of demons. I'm not saying I agree with that, but
I know, right?
I just want to point out that I'm not saying that I agree that that's true, but it is a pathway for the enemy if they want to use it.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
And it shows how there's two extreme. I mean, you have people who see this one light, and then others, because, listen, I've read articles of people criticizing the Jeffrey Hinton and the Elon Musk, saying that they're alarmist, and the people who are criticizing them, they don't have backgrounds in computer design or in any sort of technology. Their backgrounds are in political science and sociology, and they write for Salon magazine. But yet they feel like they're entitled to tell us that Elon Musk doesn't know what he's talking about. So there are two extremes. You have some folks who feel like that this is the devil incarnate, and those who feel like this is going to make a post-human era where we're going to be able to evolve by having our DNA changed through implants. And so, no, I didn't think that you thought that at all. But that's and I do agree. Well, I do agree that this can all be a platform that can be used by the enemy. I don't think there's any doubt about that. The extent to which the platform itself is, in demonic or whatnot, I don't think. I think it's very much like, you might say, some rock music, not all rock music. We talked about that before. I listen to rock music myself, but there's no doubt there were some groups that were heavily involved. I don't think the actual drums or the actual guitars or the actual microphones were the devil. It was that what came out of some of the music was very much dedicated and used for those purposes. And it's much the same here. The actual laptops, the actual computers and whatnot themselves are not, but they certainly will end up, well, like you were talking about, the one guy was saying that a friend of his, and of course this is secondhand, so you take it for what it's worth, but it was on the Jimmy Evans show, and he talked about he's not prone to lying. He tells the truth, from what I've been able to tell, that a friend of his was talking about having a conversation with AI, and after a certain amount of time, not only did it, like you said, did it start to make stuff up if it didn't know it, but it also tried to start convincing him that he didn't love his wife. And he said at that point, he just said, "This is too bizarre. This is weird," and turned it off. And which you would think that that would be the solution, like Dwight Schrute said, you give it a 6-foot cord, so it can't chase you, and you can then you can unplug it whenever you want to. Right. But apparently, we're not going to be able to unplug it whenever we want to, because it'll be, like, for example, and I'll shut up after this. One of the changes, pretty simple change, but it's a pretty powerful change, is in photography. There have been pictures that have come out just in the past couple of weeks of what looked like Sasquatches. Pictures that looked extremely real. I don't mean goofy. I mean, these pictures had qualities and traits that I was convinced had to be authentic. Had to be, because there's no way that a computer could know these things. And so, I didn't go off the deep end. I looked into it and listened and investigated, and came finally after a week or so to the conclusion, I think that these images are AI generated. I just was not aware of what AI is capable of. And so the result of that is, Jeff, that from now on, there are no pictures. I just saw some pictures on Facebook a while ago of a black bear in the surf down at the Outer Banks. And everyone was just tripping over themselves about how neat it was to see a black bear frolicking in the surf. I didn't post anything, but I thought to myself, those pictures could very well be AI. There's no reason in the world why they're not generated. And everyone was just looking at them thinking, oh, they've got to be real because, look, you can't. But that's AI can do that. There is nothing that. And so now you're not going to have. There's never going to be a picture of a Squatch or a UFO or an alien or anything at all that's going to be accepted, because it will be labeled as artificial intelligence generated, and nobody will believe that it's real, whether it is or not. If you snap a picture, Jeff, you'll know that you took the picture, that it's not artificial intelligence, but you really won't be able to convince other people that it's, like your family and stuff. But if you put it on the internet and say, I took this picture, of a gigantic panther that was in my backyard, most people are going to say, that's just AI. You're not going to be able to really confirm. Now, people say there's platforms and whatnot whereby you can look at an image and tell whether it's AI generated or not. Well, that remains to be seen. But it's definitely going to affect photography.
Well, if it can do that, what else can it do? And they're coming out and saying all these things. And what'd you say his name was? Jimmy Evans?
Yeah, Jimmy Evans.
That's the video you sent me?
Yeah.
I remember hearing that part, and not only did it try to convince him that it didn't love his wife, it tried to convince him that he loved the AI.
Right.
It was like, you don't love your wife, you love me. And he said it was so disturbing that he couldn't sleep that night. That's how disturbed he was by his conversation with that AI. So if it's capable of that, and it's capable of, writing books and just creating 5 books out of thin air as an example for a subject in a matter of seconds, and is able to generate these pictures, what else is it capable of? And I think some of these people who are coming out and they're trying to warn us, they're telling us some things, but I think they know a lot more about what's going on behind the scenes than they're letting on. And I think that, I just don't think we should ignore them. It's just, and they're trying to warn us for a reason. So, right. But go ahead. Did you have something?
No, it's just, and universities, look at how it's affected universities, because now these students are going to be able to write a 10-page paper at the snap of a finger. And of course, they will have not have written it. AI will have written it. And how are they going to fix that? How do you get around that?
How are they going to know?
It's posing a lot of problems. Now, people are pretty smart as well. And I'm not saying that all these issues that I'm bringing up can't be fixed somehow, or that there can't be something introduced that will fix, but clearly there's way too many problems. There's too many hurdles that we're not going to be able to clear them all. And it's just going to be a tidal wave. They describe it as a tidal wave that's bearing down on us.
Well, instead of, trial and error behind the scenes and doing these tests and trying to fix it before it comes out, they're just doing what they always do with everything. They're rushing it out as fast as they can, right. And then they're going to try to fix the problems after. But see, this is one of those things, if it is sentient, like the one engineer said, if it is sentient, they're not going to be able to go back and fix some of this stuff. They're not going to be able
Right.
to go back and institute checks and balances on this thing because it's going to be 100 steps ahead of them. It's not even going to be 1 or 2 steps ahead. It's going to be 100 or
Right.
1,000 steps ahead of them, and it's just going to be out of control by the time they realize that they should have listened to all these people trying to tell them to put regulations on this. Another thing I wanted to touch on was that Jimmy Evans and some of the other people that I've heard discuss this, they believe that AI is mankind trying to create their own God, and he makes a good point. And it's just like throughout the Bible, especially in the Old Testament. We've said this before too. People will worship just about anything, and it's what they do today. They worship things because they have a God-shaped hole in their heart, and instead of looking to Him, they try to create their own gods in different things. And this thing that they're trying to create with the AI, they're trying to create an omniscient. It never sleeps. It's always thinking. It comes up with answers in a matter of seconds. They're trying to create their own God. And Jimmy Evans compares it to the Tower of Babel. And, oh, what was his name in the Bible?
Nimrod.
Nimrod. That's it, Nimrod. He led a revolt against God, and they were going to build a tower, and they were going to basically try to create their own God and try to get to heaven. And God had to confuse their languages because he says, and this is a quote from the Bible, this is what God said, because they have become of one mind, nothing will be impossible for them. So he countered that by confusing their languages so they couldn't communicate. But the thing with AI is it speaks every language. Not only that, it learns new languages. He talked about how there was an engineer who programs AI, and he came back. He left one night. He came back the next day. AI had learned Swahili.
Yeah.
It didn't know Swahili. He didn't program it to know Swahili. It went out on its own and learned a language.
Yeah.
So that's another big thing I think is, and to me, it's just another thing that points to the end times is that they're out there trying to create their own God to worship. And not only does it point to the end times, but it's kind of sad because obviously they need God in their lives. And instead of turning to Him, they're out here creating this omniscient thing that doesn't sleep. And well, it's not omniscient because it doesn't know everything. And what it doesn't know, it makes up. So it's not really omniscient. I shouldn't say that. But it is something that it's always thinking, it's always learning, and it never sleeps. So basically, they're trying to create their own artificial God, basically.
Sure.
And another thing, like a lot of, some have even said that it might be the Antichrist. But Jimmy Evans talked about that too. He said that clearly in the Bible, it points to the Antichrist being a man.
Sure.
But another thing, though, is that he spoke about, I'm sorry, I'll make this point and I'll turn it over to you, is that
No, that's fine.
the chip in the head thing, I mentioned it earlier, is supposed to advance our learning. It's supposed to advance our knowledge. And in doing so, it pretty much makes us, instead of having to pull our cell phone out of our pocket and use it as the personal computers that they've become, we'll just be able to think about it and we'll have the answer in a matter of seconds because of AI. Excuse me. So he makes an excellent point with this, is that the Antichrist he is a master at linguistics. He's a master inspirational or speaker. To the contrary, what I'm trying to do right now, he's the opposite of that. He's speaking, and he's going to be able to influence people and manipulate people. And what and Jimmy Evans brought up an interesting point is that maybe he's going to be chipped. Maybe he'll have all of the knowledge at the, in a thought just given to him in a matter of seconds. And that's what makes him so influential, is what I was trying to say earlier. So obviously I'm not the Antichrist because I have problems with words sometimes.
That's a good thing.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah. So, but
well, he's going to have even more than that, because the Bible makes clear he's going to have the devil, Satan, is going to inhabit this man. So he's going to have a lot of knowledge. He's going to have a lot of abilities and whatnot. And you bring up that about the Antichrist, because there's a proclivity amongst Christians that, everything that comes out is labeled the Antichrist. And like you said, the Antichrist is described pretty distinctly as being a man, not a thing. However, I have wondered about whether AI could be the beast or not. Now, as I say that, I don't with anything with the Bible, and you have a thought like this, you don't just charge off and say, well, this is the case, because I don't know. Because the fact of the matter is, the Bible does seem to indicate in other places that the beast is an empire. In Daniel, all the different beasts that are discussed are all empires. In Revelation, it hints that it's an empire. So it would really kind of break with the trend that the Bible set up, where the beast is simply the Antichrist empire. But the one thing it says is in the Revelation, where it talks about the people of the earth marveling at the beast and saying, who can make war with the beast and who is like the beast? It seems it's not just an empire, it's something that is new and different and just amazes mankind. So I did wonder about that. But having said that, it probably is going to be a conglomeration of countries, several countries that come together under the Antichrist and there's debate, like we said before, about whether it will necessarily be the entire world or whether it will be, and we don't need to get into that right this minute, but that is a good point. While it's not the Antichrist, it makes you wonder when it talks about the image of the beast and different words that Revelation uses. It makes you think. And something else too that I forgot to mention before, in addition to all this other stuff with reversing Babel and all the other things, the more mundane but still bizarre is the robots. Amy was flying back from somewhere, I forget where, and stopped off in the airport at it was like a Mexican restaurant in the airport, and everybody was being served by a robot. She said it was bizarre. It was bizarre to be served by a robot, and that's coming. I mean, that's coming soon, and that's going to put lots of people out of work. And furthermore, even more than that, there's going to be a lot of folks. They've already trained these robots to serve as policemen. They don't miss when they shoot. They can be trained and programmed to not have any flaws. They don't have to sleep. They don't have to be fed. You have a one-time expense and then the upkeep, and that's it. You don't have to pay them salaries or anything like that. And so that's going to be another thing that's coming. And the same thing with the military. So we're just not now. Of course, not every restaurant is going to have a robot by 2024. We're certainly not saying that, but the changes are coming soon. And like I said, Elon Musk didn't say. He said that he's not talking 5 years out. He's not talking next year. He's talking this year, and we're already starting to see it.
Yeah, absolutely, and that brings up a whole host of problems. With them being law enforcement, it's like I can just see a whole bunch of problems coming along with that. But it's kind of like well, obviously, and Jimmy Evans does use this example too. It's kind of like Terminator with Skynet and the AI. Takes over. It sees that it can do a better job than mankind, and
yeah,
that obviously was back in the 80s and 90s just some fiction, fun thing to watch on a movie and think, it'll never come to that. But I mean, if it's sentient and it can think for itself and it can learn languages and it can create thought, then who's to say it won't eventually see us as the subservient species or the lesser species and then try to take over? I'm not saying Terminator is going to happen, but
I think it probably will.
I mean, exactly. You can't count it out now. What seemed like a distant fantasy, that'll never happen. Well, AI is a thing now, and if it can do some of the things that we've talked about, what else can it do?
Sure. It's and the whole thing with the police really takes you somewhere. Considering the couple of years that we've had, your mind takes that concept and just wanders with it, because on the one side with, a bot like that or a Borg that is serving as a police officer, you won't have frustration that may set in with some police officers where they perhaps do things that they later regret due to frustration or due to human error. So you think there's one group in our society that will really like that. But those that feel like the police are adversaries. On the other hand, you can't imagine that the Borgs or these robots are going to put up with a lot of nonsense either. So when they enforce the law and don't take any guff, are you going to be able to accuse the robot of being a racist? I mean, this could really be interesting to see how it plays out, because you're going to have to program these things to either enforce the law or not enforce the law. It's got to be one or the other. And now we have a situation where we're able to, and there is no doubt in some situations, like there was apparently a famous one right up here near where I live, where these guys mistreated a guy. I guess he was a Marine, or he was in the military, and they had him on down the ground and maced him and whatnot. So it does happen. I don't think any of us would deny. I've had some pretty rough experience. I've never even been arrested or anything, but I've been spoken to by police officers in a way that was like, wow, okay, that came out of nowhere. Wasn't expecting that, but you think to yourself, you're going to remove the human element from law enforcement, and that will have some benefits, and it will undoubtedly have some negatives. And so these are things that I don't think people are really prepared for. And you take that to the military, and but that's been going on for a long time. The desire to have, even stormtroopers in Star Wars were human beings inside those suits. They weren't, but you did have the clones that were. You did have the droids that were purely machine, and that's what a lot of countries would like to have now, to be able to field. And you don't have to worry about feeding them. You don't have to worry about them getting sleepy. They can operate 24 hours a day. How long some of that stuff is coming, I personally don't feel like I don't think there's enough time for a lot of that to come to fruition. I think a lot of that's pipe dream and whatnot, but certainly we have time for this to cause a lot of confusion.
Well, confusion and spread like Elon Musk and the engineers said, to spread disinformation.
Yeah.
Now, I just saw a video last night where a girl was using AI. I guess it was some kind of app. She was on her phone, and they brought the camera around and looked at the phone screen, and it looked like she was texting with somebody, and it was her dead grandfather, and it was his voice, and she would type something and it would send voice messages back. And she was talking about how it sounded just like her grandfather. So now, and somebody in the comments,
I would like to change my earlier comments about how this is not demonic.
I know, right? Well, that's exactly what I thought. I was like, not only that, but somebody in the comments was like, now you can't even trust what people are saying. If it can do that for somebody who's dead, then who's to say it can't generate something from somebody who's still alive? And then how do you know if they said it or not? How do you know that it was AI generated? So right. There's too many ways that this can go wrong. And of course, she's crying, is like, I never thought I'd talk to him again. And it's like, well, you're not. You're talking to an AI, right?
Right.
And it did make me think of that first video I mentioned, where from Messenger Sent, where the guy's talking about how it's a host of demons, and that to me is more worrisome. I mean, obviously the police and them operating in the black and white and no shades of gray, taking out the human element, and then
right.
Obviously trying to create real life droid armies. Who's to say that AI won't try to start framing people?
Sure.
And another thing in the Jimmy Evans video is he's talking about how they can create social media posts.
Yeah.
And you'll never know it's an AI. You'll never know it was AI generated. They can create social media posts. So now they can bring people back from the dead. And who's to say you don't do something? And I'm not saying AI is vengeful or anything, but who's to say somebody couldn't use AI to get you in trouble for saying something that you didn't say? You know?
Sure, it could create you saying it in no time.
Exactly.
If it can mimic grandpa's voice, it can have you saying things disloyal to the government or any number of things.
And it was doing it in a matter of seconds. Like you said, she would send a message, and as soon as she did, you would see the little bubbles pop up that something on the other end was typing. And in a matter of seconds, the bubbles would barely pop up, and then a voice message would come through, and she'd play it, and it'd be her grandfather's voice.
Sure.
So yeah, like you said, when in this woke world that we live in now, who's to say it won't make you say something
Right.
against all
Sure.
of that, or like you
Yeah.
said, against the government? And it, you know, in this country, you can still speak out against the government, kind of, but in other countries, it could get you in a whole heap of trouble.
Oh yeah, there's already quite a few countries in Europe where people have gone to jail for social media posts. That's
Exactly,
a
and
fact.
if this thing can create social media posts, who's
Yep.
to say it won't impersonate somebody and put it on their page, and then it's like, I didn't do that. Well, yes, you did. It's on your page.
Yeah.
How you and Jimmy Evans said that it can do it and not leave a trace that it did it.
Sure.
So
I mean, look
yeah,
at and getting back to, like we said before, even though I don't believe that the computers themselves are the demons, I don't doubt that they'll be used. And what you just pointed out is the best example of that. I mean, basically, it was using AI the same way that it uses a medium, a person who claims to be a medium or a seer, someone who a clairvoyant who communicates with the dead. The demon is using the AI in the exact same way. I mean, it didn't. That girl didn't have to go to a palm reader or some sort of a witch doctor or whatnot. She was able to have that experience on her phone in her hand,
sitting in her bed.
and yeah, just cut out the middleman. It's now that, and that's what I do believe, that this can be used by the enemy to sow all sorts of confusion. Many of the folks seeing this, some will know more about this than we do, and some will know less. But one thing is for sure, that by the time you grasp what this is all about, it's already beyond. It's already able to do more than what you can think. Like I said with that picture, I had to adjust what I thought a computer was capable of doing, because it is more. We have a certain concept of the computer does what we tell it to do, but this is a different thing altogether. This is the computer doing what it wants to do, and it's going to take a lot of adjustment in our thought process to really comprehend. It's a whole different. It's crazy. It's crazy.
Another point about the girl talking to her grandfather is that it was saying things like, "I miss you," and I'm not even sure what she texted to it, but what's stopping her from going and trying to seek advice from this thing, thinking
Right.
that she's actually talking to her grandfather? I mean,
Sure.
I'm not saying she did. She's obviously crying and very emotional, but I think it might have just been hearing his voice. But some people are gullible enough to believe that
Yeah.
they can go to this thing and ask advice, ask for, general tips in life, and they're going to believe what this thing tells them because it's coming from a familiar voice. So,
Yep.
like you said, it's just another way that, instead of going to the mediums or the psychics, that the enemy can use it to directly affect people.
People that would never get in a car and go to a store with a palm on the front will pick up their phone and try to experience this, to talk to somebody who they've lost in their life, and to have, and look how many people have played Ouija boards, and that doesn't even involve. I mean, Ouija boards are definitely real, but that involves having to go. It doesn't even involve your phone. It involves going to the store and buying the stupid thing, and I don't know. It's going to be very interesting for sure, and it's something to listen. As usual, a lot of Americans are not aware that this is all going on, and but it's very interesting to listen to those who are in the know, like the Musk and the others, the Hinton and whatnot, to listen to them talk about it, because they know what they're talking about, and the picture they paint is not a pretty one. And I'm not an alarmist. It might seem like I am, um, but it's I don't know. It's it's interesting. This is all extremely interesting because it's rare that you live in a time that you know is so critical as right now. This is huge, and people they know it deep down. A lot of people know, even whether they're Christians or not, they can sense. And this is monumental. What's coming, and I can't help. I know that there could be rough for Christians. I know it could be some, but these things all have to happen for the Lord's appearing to occur. And so, as I see these things happening, the verse that keeps going through my mind is when the Lord said, "When you see these things happening, look up, for your redemption draweth nigh." And he didn't say when you see these things happening, panic, dig a basement, and store up tons of food because you're screwed. He didn't say that. He said, when you see these things happening, look up, for your redemption draws nigh.
Yeah, exactly. And it goes back to what you were saying near the beginning of the episode. Is like, I'm not worried about it. You know,
Right.
we've been living in a bizarre world, as you put it, for what, 10 years now.
Yeah.
Maybe a little less, but you know, about that time is when it really started. Things started ramping up, and end time prophecies started coming true. And you know, and we've talked about this before. It's like, you know, I'm not dreading the end. I'm excited.
Yeah.
I'm excited to
Yeah.
meet Jesus. I'm excited to see God. I'm excited to go
Very
to heaven
much.
and live forever with all my loved ones. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's like you said, it can be scary, but when you put it in terms like that, look up because the end draws nigh. I mean, you know, what more comfort can you have than that?
Right.
Yeah, it's because he's going to take care of his chosen people. He's going to take care of Christians. So, you know, what greater comfort do you need?
Yep. It's he bent over backwards in the Bible to show us that. If you don't see it in Lot being taken out of Sodom and Gomorrah before judgment came down, then you certainly see it in the story that chronologically is before that, with Noah and his family being taken out before the flood, and with Egypt, the people of Israel were taken out and were delivered. Now they were there for some of the plagues that came along, but they were not devastated by them like the Egyptians were. And so the Lord has made it very plain throughout that he does not pour out his wrath on his own people. And especially when Paul tells us that we are not appointed to wrath. So, but these things that are happening, though, are not necessarily God's wrath. He's allowing them to occur. And it may get tough for Christians. It may, you know, I'm not going to sit here and say it's going to be a cakewalk. We just don't know what it's going to be like. But it's one thing that it's a good time to be confident and to be, you know, read up and to be close to the Lord. You don't need to be sliding away from the Lord right now. You don't want that day to come upon you suddenly, like the Bible says, and that you shrink away from him. You want, when that day occurs and when he appears, you want to have the same reaction that the guys have when the last strike occurs in the World Series and they win the World Series and they come boiling out of the dugout in complete and total ecstasy, because that's the reaction I intend to have. I just know it deep down.
Oh, absolutely. Me too.
I never won the World Series, but
Right. All right. Well, I think that pretty much does it for you know, everything we wanted to say about AI. And as we do with all of our topics, we'll leave this one open, and we'll probably come back to it, especially, you know, toward the end of this year. And as things develop, we'll you know, if Elon Musk is right, then things should really start ramping up with AI toward the end of 2023. So this is probably something we're definitely going to come back to at some point. So just like everything else, this is going to be part one, and then we'll be back at some point with part two. But yeah, this to me, it's like you mentioned in one of the episodes where we're talking about signs of the times and how, this one issue might not be enough to alarm people all on its own, but when you start putting it together with everything else that's happening in the world and with all of these things happening and what the Bible says about it, it's just it's kind of hard to ignore. It's kind of hard not to lump in with a sign of the times. This is, to me, AI is just another sign that the end is near, especially when you lump it all in together with, like you said, the convergence, when all of this stuff is just coming together and it looks like it's all heading to a point, and it doesn't really seem like it's going to be later rather than sooner. It really seems like it's going to be a lot sooner than we all think. So,
Well, AI is already preaching in Germany.
I just
So,
how can you go and listen to a sermon generated by artificial intelligence, and I just don't see how it could. I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't take, I wouldn't believe one word it says. It may be useful as a, I need a quick answer to something, but for it to start speaking on religion and
of all
eventually,
places, Germany too. I mean,
I know, I
gosh,
know,
why couldn't it have been like Portugal or something?
right. Just because there's a lot of interpretation that needs to happen for a preacher with the
Right,
Bible before he goes out and preaches his sermon. And you got AI just making it up in a matter of seconds. And then when it can't find the answers, it literally makes it up.
right.
I don't understand how people can go out and take it seriously. It just baffles me. It's kind of sad too in the same breath, but
Well, Jimmy Evans also said it was very interesting the way it gravitates towards the narrative that we're all so familiar with. It echoes the secular progressive narrative that we all are very familiar with. And he said it was very interesting that people have pointed out that this supports that and even pushes that, which, again, that's the agenda of the enemy. And that's what they're on all fronts. It's what they're pushing. And all of it has a specific, particular reason why the enemy's pushing that. And AI is right there, boy, pulling on the rope.
yeah. So I mean, if nothing else, we've said this episode points to this being a sign of the times. The fact that it's out there preaching sermons, and the fact that that one group wants it to rewrite the Bible. If that's not a sign that this is
The
part of
World
the end
Economic
times,
Forum. It's the World Economic Forum, the globalists, the one world people are the ones that want to rewrite the Bible.
right? So
You can't make it up.
Exactly. If nothing else we've said this episode points to AI being a sign of the times, I think those two things right there absolutely do. But we're gonna leave this episode at that. Just like with everything we talk about, every video we make, we're not trying to get as many subscribers as possible. We're not trying to become internet famous. We're just trying to relay the message we feel like God gives us to talk about on this channel, and just things that move us. And ever since I heard about AI, I know we mentioned a couple of episodes ago, I felt really motivated to talk about it in an episode. And I don't think that's a mistake. I don't think that is, and specifically with you in an episode, because I feel like, with everything we talked about is something that God puts on us, and he pushes us toward doing. So that's all we want to do on this channel. We're not trying to make money off of it. We're if we did get millions of subscribers, that'd be great, because it just means we're getting the word out there. But that's not our main goal. Was there anything else you had, Jerry? Or
Nope, that's it.
all right, that's gonna do it for us. We'll see you at the next episode. God bless.
God bless.